ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Welcome all of you to the alternate Saturday class on Vedanta and the science of human possibilities, as we have named it. Normally, this class used to be held at Bharati Vidya Bhavan, which we are beginning from next Saturday, or not next Saturday, the Saturday, next Saturday we have Durga Puja. So the Saturday next to that, we will again resume the Bharati Vidya Bhavan classes. If not alternately, at least once in a month, or if possible, sometimes twice. But as you know, the alternate class is either on the Gita or the Upanishads, because they are Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. So it makes sense to discuss the Upanishads in the light of Gita or Gita in the light of Upanishads, because it is the garland of Upanishad verses which Sri Krishna beautifully made this garland of the various verses of the Upanishad. May not be in the same language, but the meaning is similar. So you'll find a lot of verses on Vedanta, both Advaita Vedanta, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita. All the three schools of Vedanta are included in the both the Upanishads as well as the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita in a much more uh, synthetic way, all the verses from the Upanishads, the idea behind those verses have been expressed by Sri Krishna, classifying them into 18 chapters. Each chapter describing a particular yoga, which is unique. We have heard of four yogas basically, which deal with the four aspects of human personality: thinking, feeling, willing, willpower, and restraining power of the mind, which is Raj Yoga, which is normally it was not considered as a separate yoga, because the power of restraining the mind is not a function, it is a technique or a sadhana, which is the basis of spiritual life. If the mind is not restrained, so they didn't think it was to be classified as a yoga. Normally, in the West also, we will find that there is the feeling, there is thinking, cognition, feeling, emotion, and volition or willing, the power to will. Now, the same thing, mind may be having these three functions, but Vedanta says it is not the same mind. This mind has been further divided into two, which we saw in our previous class: the Manomaya Kosha and the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Before that, we discussed what the Annamaya Kosha or the physical body is, and then Pranamaya Kosha with the vital forces which help the body to be called a living body, performing all the actions, functions like beating of the heart, digesting, so many functions which have been broadly been classified into five pranas. So that is Pranamaya Sharira or Pranamaya Kosha. But what about Manomaya and intelligent and the Vijnanamaya Kosha? How are they linked? They are in the Western psychology, they will be known as the mind. You don't distinguish two types of between two types of mind as we do in Vedanta. Vedanta, there is a clear distinction. manas and buddhi. Manas is what we call as manomay kosha, the reactive mind, and buddhi is vijnanamay kosha, the discriminative or discerning mind, the mind which decides what to do, what not to do. So that choice making capacity. So both involve thinking, feeling, willing. So how do we use feeling as an instrument of knowledge? Yes, feeling is definitely an instrument of knowledge. If the feeling is controlled, if the emotions are under our control, then feeling can be used as a source of knowledge. Bhakti. Bhakti means you are not emotional to anything and everything. You are emotional only to God, a personal aspect of God, which will make correct use of the emotion. But the same emotion can be used in a negative way when we deal with human beings. Human emotion, and all very often there are negative emotions, positive emotions. But bhakti can always be positive, has to be positive because it's always elevating. So that is how we use the different faculty of the mind. But there are two other faculties: thinking, which is also known as intelligence, not the Western intelligence, the intelligence uh, which is translated as buddhi. It's a wrong way of translating. Buddhi is much more than intelligence. The Western intelligence means some kind of uh, intellectual skill which will decide you how to invest money, how to work, how to develop various skills. That is intelligence according to the Western classification. But here intelligence means buddhi. What to do, what not to do, to decide what is good for you, what is not good for you. So it is like a internal guru. I mean, we normally expect the guru to do, the physical guru or the guru, which is a virtual guru, which is the Lord Himself. Virtual in the sense we do not have direct contact with Him. But in our tradition, we outsource the spiritual thinking to Him. But at a certain stage, as Sri Ramakrishna says, the mind itself becomes the guru. It's not the reactive mind. Reactive mind can never become the guru. It is the when the buddhi awakens. That is the function of all our mantra sadhana. Because mantra is just to awaken the buddhi. And with that illumined buddhi, we try to understand spiritual things which are normally not known to the ordinary intellect as the Westerners consider it. Well, it can give you some kind of discrimination between what to do, what not to do, uh, in a worldly sense, but in a spiritual sense, you need buddhi. So it's a very significant term, this manas and buddhi, that is manomay kosha and vijnanamay kosha, is totally together known as antakarana. By antakarana, and what is the difference between antakarana and the physical body? Physical body is the gross instrument. Even prana, they are the gross instruments which help us to interact with the world. But there is an internal instrument which handles, it is something like software. It's not exactly the same. The software and hardware of a computer. The computer has a hardware which can be uh, compared to the Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha, but we need the software to run it, a intelligent software. So that is the known as internal instrument. That is the best translation we can do in English. It is antah karana. Karana means that which does, that which acts, or that which forces one to act, or forces the body, or motivates the body, or guides the body to act is the antakarana. So without antakarana, your body will may react to certain external stimulus, but a it can't give rise to a right kind of reaction to all the external stimulus. The body, the animal has antakarana, but buddhi is a bit weak. in that. Its prana and its manas will be very strong because it can react even faster than us. Their reflex action is very good. Nervous system also is good. They can be very sharp, much more sharper than us. But to take the right decision, that is not possible because their buddhi is antakarana, which is made of manas and buddhi, has not developed like in human beings. So now, it when you say antakarana, that is the internal mind or the internal instrument, subtle body, it defines the position of the mind in human personality. What is the role of mind in human personality? The term manas, which refers to the mind as a whole, is also used in a restricted sense. You see, manas can mean the higher manas and the lower manas, but it can be used in a limited sense. The manas that we refer to here in Vedanta is a restricted, is used in the restricted sense. So what is the role of the manas? What is the role of the buddhi? We'll see. And we have noted that the difference between manas and buddhi is that manas is just an extension of our indriyas, which helps us to react, helps us to act and react. But what is the motivation? Who motivates it to act in a particular way and not in a particular way? That is known as buddhi, the deliberative phase of the mind. So manas and buddhi are clearly distinguished. One is finer than the other. Manas is grosser. Buddhi is, though both are functions of the mind, they have been classified as manas and buddhi. Similarly, the willpower, the power to execute, convert thoughts into actions. You see, we may have many good thoughts, but it requires some kind of willpower to convert that thought into action. Otherwise, you will go on thinking, thoughts will be there, which will not be of any use to us. Very good thoughts, very noble intentions. So, intentions by themselves are of no use unless a will is attached to them. So, now the Vedantic philosophy or Vedanta, when you do the uh, investigation into the five koshas, the five aspects of human personality, according to Vedanta, Annamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. So when we distinguish them, there is a reason why we do it because each one represents a particular aspect. So we'll have to understand which part of our personality is responsible for our thinking, which part of our mind or the antakarana, the internal instrument, is responsible for our willpower. Though we loosely say our thinking capacity, cognition, our feeling capacity or emotion, or the capacity to take decisions and implement it, the willpower. So these have been broadly been classified in Western psychology, but who runs that? Who controls that in the human personality? Without understanding them, we are at the slave. We are slaves to these three faculties of our mind without knowing how they are to be used. They use us. I mean, the external circumstances, our willpower is not our own. It has to be, we have to be masters of our willpower, masters of our thinking, and masters of our emotion. It is the problems arise only because our emotions are not under our control. Our willpower is not, we want to do certain things, but we are not able to do. We feel in a certain way, but we are not able to express it. But that is how our education has trained us all through. If you see, our education has trained us to be dependent on external circumstances for our own survival. Our own personality is determined by how people judge us, how people influence us, how people manipulate us. That's a strong word to use, but people do manipulate us. So our minds are not in our control. That is the reason why Vedanta gives lot of emphasis on the antakarana, because that instrument, the software in a computer, has to obey the instructions. Otherwise, if the software is not properly designed, the hardware is not going to cooperate. The functions will not be accomplished. So, in the human personality, the distinction between the power, the power of the mind to will, will means to exert our willpower to convert our thoughts into action. Say you have decided that every day I will get up at 5 o'clock and sit for meditation. The intention is there, very noble intention is there, because you know that without that your mind cannot be trained. But the body and the pranamaya kosha do not cooperate. So there's, because of lack of willpower, the intentions are not converted into actions. So you simply cannot force your annamaya kosha and the pranamaya kosha to follow the instructions of the mind, the antakarana, no matter how good the intentions, how many times one has accepted the fact that it is good for us to follow a particular discipline, follow a particular routine, or follow a particular self-discipline or some kind of self-control which will enhance our capacity, enhance our human personality, and increase the possibilities of that personality. So the volitional and the cognitive aspects of the mind, how are they connected to each other? We think the mind is one homogeneous, it is no doubt homogeneous, it is all connected to each other. But at the same time, the different functions are controlled by different aspects of our mind. That is very important to understand. So when you say manas, it's not good to just say it is a lower mind, because we need manas. A strong manas is the volitional or the willpower aspect of the mind. Buddhi may tell you what to do or make you take the right decision at the right time. But beyond that, it has to depend on manas, just as we have to depend on organs, our indriyas. We have to use our hands to convert that thought into action. So many agencies or so many instruments are required. So it is not so easy thinking, if thinking was everything. That is why many times dis, uh, we are under the delusion that we have read this book, we have read Gita, we have read Upanishads, and we have a thorough knowledge. Understanding is something different. That is only one aspect of our personality, that is cognition. So we have a wonderful cognition, but unfortunately, we have no control over the other two aspects of the mind, that is emotions and willpower, that is volition. So the knowledge does not give the desired result because this connection is not established. So how to distinguish between this? How to distinguish between these powers and see who is handling which power, which part of the mind is handling? Then once we know how our willpower acts, how our thinking or intelligence acts, which part of our personality is responsible for uh, which aspect of our mind, then we can control it. So first we have to know uh, what controls our different actions, which are the functions of the mind, or which are the uh, phases or the functions of the mind that control different actions. So cognition and thinking and implementing, that is willpower, are two distinctive powers of the mind. So now there is a comparison between the, very nice comparison has been given, not comparison, a connection has been given between these three powers, the power to think, the power to feel, and the power to act or will, power to will, using our willpower, which is closest to the self. This is a golden rule, as I told you, when the Pancha Kosha Vichara is there. You can control the hardware by the software. What is more subtle controls the one which is more gross. The grossest is Annamaya Kosha. So if you say the body does not cooperate, it's not just the body, it is not the prana. Prana, of course, you need prana, the energy to control the physical body. But who controls the prana? It is the manas. Who controls the manas? It is the buddhi. And what is the Anandamaya Kosha? The Karana Sharira, obviously, the last one, the subtlest of our human, of the five different sheets of human personality, controls everything. So we have to find how the thought is converted into action. So, being the finest of all aspects of the mind, this buddhi or the cognitive mind, the thought comes first. That is why Buddha traced everything to thought. He said, as you think, so you become. So, first stage in transforming ourselves, transforming our personality is the thought. If the thought is not there, that is the most subtle, it's a kind of seed. So, once the seed is planted, then it acts on the gross layer below it, then it goes to the grosser layer below it, and finally it reaches the body or the Annamaya Kosha. So, being the finest of all the aspects of the mind, the cognitive buddhi, that is why so much of importance. In fact, the spiritual life begins only after buddhi is activated. That is the source of all our spiritual power or spiritual life, in fact. So before buddhi is awakened, they say spiritual life does not even begin. We are living at a gross level. So that is why, as I never, I'm not tired to say this, that the idea of Gayatri, the Dvija, the second birth of a human being, takes place only when he is given the Gayatri mantra, which is the only mantra in our tradition, the oldest mantra in our tradition, not only, the oldest mantra in our tradition, which is used to awaken this buddhi. So the Vedantic teachers understood that if the buddhi is not awakened, all our efforts, all our skill development, all the development of the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, even Manomaya Kosha, all the wonderful skills that we uh, develop because of our education will be of no use, because the deliberative, the buddhi is not there to guide all these things. It will be something which is not under control. It is very strong, but it's like a robot which will act in whichever way it wants. There's nobody to guide the robot. Some intelligent principle which will guide this uh, tremendous power that is generated by the lower three koshas, that is closest to the self, and it's the most important aspect of the mind, which is also known as Vijnanamaya kosha. This is the mind. So it is from this cognitive mind that other aspects of the mind, the emotional and the willpower, come out. They are much grosser in nature. That is why it's easy to control our emotion if you are thoughtful. Thoughts, rational thinking should always get precedence over emotions. Because emotions, to control the emotions, we need a thoughtful mind. And those emotions further control our willpower. So when you say Swami Vivekananda in his beautiful uh, wonderful talks on Karma Yoga, he says education, the fault of education is we teach the child, we are giving so much of importance to cognition, to know what is right, what is this, so much of information is fed. And we always give him moral values, saying you should do this, you should do that. But he says the fault is you don't deal with the other two koshas or the other two faculties, emotional and volitional. How not to do it? Stealing is not good. Okay, you tell a person, tell a boy, small growing up boy, that you should not steal. These are the moral values. But how not to steal when you objects are there? If your willpower, you don't have the enough willpower to control your mind and tell that mind not to steal, that boy will steal. Or any action, it is the volitional aspect. which has to be controlled by the emotional aspect by the cognitive aspect. So thinking removes to a large extent all the problems in our life through right education. So the education of buddhi alone is true education according to Vivekananda, and also is the beginning of spiritual life. Let me say beginning. So no matter how much academically a person is intelligent and so well read, he might have read all the books, but unless his intuitive faculty or known, which is known as buddhi, is awakened by prayers, by spiritual practices, by many things which have been designed by our rishis. One of them is the Gayatri Mantra. There are many other ways to awaken this buddhi, but a child was supposed to learn this at the age of between the age of 6 and 8. It's not just a random age they have decided. They believed that this Gayatri Mantra, the Upanayana, or whatever ritualistic names are not important. But the spirit behind that was that by the age of 6, the child becomes grown up. Uh, he is enough intelligence to learn what is good for him, to make the right choices, and to develop the buddhi. So it begins at that age. Till then, it is okay. Information you can give him lot of skills, but after that, just skills will not help. He'll be a very intelligent person, but emotionally totally broken, not able to control himself, or he may be totally uh, incapable of making the right decisions. Always make wrong decisions using his intelligence for wrong purposes, and then will. Uh, so, education, just training and skill development itself is not education. And the organs, they have a tendency to respond. The organs, how does one refrain from doing bad things? The mind will definitely tell, but the mind will tell, and the willpower has to implement that and tell the body and pranamaya kosha, not to do certain things, not to do this, or for example, practice self-discipline, which involves a lot of restraint. So who is going to restrain the body? If the body, by nature, everything is restless, including the body. Now it requires tremendous energy, tremendous willpower to tell the body not to be restless, just sit quiet. That's why when we try to train a dog or even a small child just to sit quietly, how difficult it is, not only for the teachers but also the parents. Just to make the child sit quietly or the dog sit quietly and obey, we have to spend hours and hours and hours of training the will of that animal or the small child, to tell it, see, when I say you have to sit down, you have to sit down. You should not move. You tell your body, but the will, boy or girl, the child will shake his legs, hands, and just jump around. Then you have to coerce it, force it. But externally, it won't work because his own willpower is not cooperating. His own emotions are not under his control. So that is why this training of buddhi was done at the age of 6, because beyond that, the child is beyond repair. It is very difficult. Then you tell a 20-year-old person to start your developing your buddhi, then it becomes very difficult, because he says, I know this is wrong, but then I can't help it. My body and mind are not obeying, the body and the prana are not obeying. I want to do, but the moment I see some temptations, I just run after it. Smoking, drinking, anything. It can be anything. And then you you can't tell the boy all of a sudden, or the child, to stop, to use the willpower. Where is the willpower? He says, teach me how to do it. Teach me how not to do this, how not to do that, how to sit quietly. Thoughts may be very good. We may expose the child to a lot of wonderful thoughts. You should go here, go listen to this, listen to that. But how to implement that is, for that you need a deeper understanding of the five koshas and the psychology. So here they say, the Vedanta says, the volitional mind. The willpower, as I said, there are three parts of the mind: the thinking mind, the feeling mind, and the willing mind. So, the willpower, what does it control? It has five organs of perception: audition, hearing, touch, that is skin, vision, eyes, taste, and smell. These are the five inputs we get. If you have been used to a certain taste, and if somebody says, no, it's not tasty, then the child will say, I don't want to eat it. Because the taste is controlling, he is not able to control the taste. So also smell, so also vision. That willpower to tell the eye, tell the ear to do exactly what the Buddhi says. Buddhi is the ruler. Buddhi is the ruler of the whole mind. It's the subtlest part of the mind. It will dictate. But the willpower will not listen. The lower mind doesn't listen to the Buddhi. Buddhi has not developed, it's not strong enough to control the lower two aspects. So the mental sheath, Manomaya Kosha, is made of the five organs of perception. See, this is Manomaya Kosha. Audition, listening, ears, not the physical ears, but the internal ear. They are known as Indriyas, the organs. The cognitive mind with the five organs of perception constitute the intelligence or the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the subtle aspect. The volitional mind with the five organs of perception, that is hearing, what I hear, what I see, what I taste, what I smell, actually. That is the volitional mind. The willpower tells what to eat, what to see, what not to see, all these things. But the cognitive mind, which controls the Vijnanamaya sheath, is known as the intelligent sheath or the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Since it bears reflection of the witness self, that is the self, which is controlling. The Atma is, of course, controlling the whole thing. Even the Buddhi is controlled by the self. Now, with that self consciousness, which is there in every human being or every being, he thinks, I am the doer, I am happy, I am unhappy. If you ask somebody who is unhappy, he will not say, my mind is unhappy or my eyes are unhappy because the eyes are not getting what it wants to see. He will say, I am unhappy, though it is not true. It is the mind that is unhappy. The Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is not able to get that connection with the volitional aspect of the mind. So he will say the intelligent self operates on the mental and vital sheaths. Vital means the Pranamaya Kosha. So, for example, if in the mind there is a desire or there is some idea that has been put in the mind that it's good to get up early in the morning, sit, control the mind and meditate. Because the scripture says that is how you can discipline the mind. But the willpower doesn't cooperate. The willpower says you may have read all these things, but it is difficult. Let me just go to sleep. So it has to operate at all the three levels. So the Vyavaharika Jiva, there is a beautiful verse in verse 89 in Vedanta Sara. Vedanta Sara is a book which explains all the different difficult aspects of the Upanishads in a very simple way, in a classified way. So that is why people before studying Vedanta, they go to the basic texts which are known as Prakarana Granthas. So Vedanta Sara of Sadananda, Swami Sadananda wrote this. He compiled all the teachings very clearly. It's like an introductory text to explain different terms. We just use buddhi, manas, all these things which occur in Vedanta has been defined. So he says, Eteshu kosheshu madhen, and when we deal with the three koshas, he has so nicely classified it. He says, what is the function of the Vijnanamaya kosha? What is the function of the Manomaya kosha, the lower mind, and what is the function of the Pranamaya kosha? So they have, amongst themselves, these koshas have distributed the three functions of the mind. He says, Eteshu kosheshu madhe. Among all the three koshas, Vijnanamaya Jnana Shaktiman Kartri Rupaha means the intelligent sheath, that is the Vijnanamaya kosha, is endowed with the power of knowledge and is of the form of the agent. Means he says, now you do this, now you do that. So there should be some agency, some rider, some driver of the chariot. Though the owner may not do anything, there is a driver who is driving the car. So you have to tell him, go here, go there, go. So somebody has to tell. So that Vijnanamaya Kosha does. Suppose we take our body to be a chariot, which is done in Kathopanishad very nicely. Yama is explaining Nachiketa that body is like a chariot. The one who is the master of the chariot doesn't do the driving. The driver is somebody else. He drives. So who is the drive? The Sarathi. Sarathi is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. Jnana Rupa, Kartri Rupa. He is the Kartri. See that Sarathi he is the agent. He is not the self. The self will just sit and watch the driver driving the vehicle of the body. Now that driver who is driving, he has to be given instructions. You can't, the master of the chariot cannot just wish and think that the chariot will be driven. The driver has to actually coordinate with the other three aspects of the mind. So it is the form Kartri Rupa, that agency. The driver now decides, depending on the instructions of the master, he decides this is the way the chariot should move. So he is endowed with the power of knowledge. So Jnana Shaktiman. So there is a Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. That is how even the Tantras believe in this. They say all the three Shaktis are in seed form in the Bij mantra or the mantra that is given. So first it awakens the Jnana Shakti, then it awakens the Ichha Shakti, the desire comes to become spiritual, and then the Kriya Shakti, you really start getting up. So by the time your thought becomes action, there are three processes. That is why Buddha said, as you think, so you become. To become, first you have to think. So he is the agent, the Vijnanamaya Kosha within us is the agent. Manomaya Ichha Shaktiman Karana Rupa. So the mental sheath, what it does, because the mind is a very great friend. That is why in Vedanta they say Manomaya Kosha is one of the Indriyas. Though they say there are five Indriyas, seeing, smelling, tasting, and all the five senses, but they don't act in isolation. The eye also requires the mind. Mind is a friend of all these five. So the mind is endowed with the power of will, the mental sheath. The Manomaya Kosha has a function, and that is Ichha Shaktiman, means it is full of Ichha Shakti. Ichha, before Kriya, Ichha should be there. If you don't have a desire, strong desire to perform, strong desire to do, then you can't do. Thought may be there, but then it should be strengthened by the Manomaya Kosha, which is endowed with the power of will. Then the will comes into action and it awakens all the instruments. It tells the eye to do something, it tells the legs to sit and meditate, it tells either if somebody is very keen to build his body, they'll say now you have to go to the gym. So it requires tremendous willpower to again and again do certain things. So the Ichha Shakti may be there, but Kriya Shakti should be there. So who is the one, which aspect of our human personality is responsible for the willpower? Kriya Shakti. Pranamaya Kriya Shaktiman Karya Rupaha. And the vital sheath which is endowed with the power of activity and is in the form of karma, the real karya. So that is when the three stages we have to pass for a thought to become action. Now this is true in the case of every thought. Every thought that we think will not logically become an action unless the Ichha Shakti and Kriya Shakti come into play. So among these, among these also, which should have precedence? The intelligent seed, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is possessed of the power of cognition, is the main agent. The mental sheath, which is possessed of the power of volition, that is willpower, is the instrument. And the vital sheath, which is possessed of the power of activity, that is Kriya Shakti, is the actual operation. So the empirical self, the chariot, master of the chariot, all he has to do is tell the driver or the driver of the chariot, tell the Vijnanamaya Kosha that this is good, now you have to do this. But the matter does not end there. He has to convince the Manomaya Kosha. That is why self-discipline actually trains the Manomaya Kosha. The very function of discipline, why students are asked to be very disciplined, because if there is a haphazard approach to life, the Manomaya Kosha will not develop the volitional or the willpower. So to develop the will, in fact, in Japan, they say the children are not given any intellectual activity in the primary level. When they go to the kindergarten and all, they are made to do things. That's why it has become a great race, such a small country, because they believe it said, if what's the point in giving so many thoughts which will remain frozen in the brain and undigested all your life. Swamiji says that's why he appreciated the wonderful country. We had a brahmachari, I told this before also. This shows typical Japanese attitude towards Kriya Shakti. They are doers. They don't want to confuse their mind with too many thoughts. Once cognition comes, they'll go to the next step, that is how to develop the willpower. So Kriya Shakti, before that, Ichha Shakti, take up an idea, develop the Ichha Shakti behind that, power of will, and then make it active and then implement it. Then go to another thought. So it was so difficult for the novices who came like the typical Indian way. We learn so many things and end up doing nothing. That is why Swamiji says we had the greatest thinkers of the world, but most impractical race. That's why we suffered. He has criticized every race. He has criticized the Greeks for their superiority and where they made the mistakes. He criticized the Romans, where they were great and where they were weak, and also the Indians. Because the too much of importance is given to uh, Jnana Shakti. So Jnana Shakti man Kartri Rupa. So we are like agents. We want somebody else to do it. It doesn't. We have to do it ourselves. So this Japanese brahmachari was in the training center. He said, "See, don't give me too many thoughts." It was very logical from his point of view because he has been trained in that culture. He said, "I can't even digest one book, and you are asking me to read morning one book, afternoon one more book. So many subjects. I'm getting confused." He was very honest because he says that is how we train ourselves. We take up an idea and then develop the Ichha Shaktiman, Karana Rupa, endowed with the power of will, which is the power, the form of instrument. We have so many instruments, they have to be told. They are basically lazy, they will go on strike. So we have to tell them to work. See, this is the thought, this is what you have to do, but you do it. And when you do it, the Pranamaya Kosha has to cooperate. So though they are gross, they have to be controlled. And then the body will follow. Body is a inert thing. All the limbs of the body are very inert. The nervous energy, that is prana, has to tell, the heart has to beat in a proper way. Uh, no matter how much tonics and other things you take. If the mind is not attached, if the Ichha Shakti is not there, the Manomaya Kosha is not strong, and before that the Vijnanamaya Kosha is not developed, then according to Vedanta, the three sheaths will not act upon the body at all. So these three powers have to be developed. So uh, that is what Acharya Shankara says in the Vivek Chudamani. He gives the very graphic description why we consider buddhi to be the most important aspect. He says, this is verse number 84, buddhi and the organs of perception with its thought modifications, which is there with the doer, because the doer means we. The person who is sitting in the chariot, he should have a good driver. And it's not enough. He should have a strong, I mean, horses have to be strong, but the rein with which with which the horses are controlled have to be strong. That is manas. The willpower should be strong. Otherwise, no matter how good the horses are, if the uh, charioteer or the driver is not strong enough, he cannot control the reins, then the horses will go here and there. So all the three aspects are very important. Buddhi is superior. The Buddhi is the driver. Buddhim tu sarathim vidhi. Kathopanishad said, Buddhi is the driver. So once the Buddhi driver, we first job a charioteer or the owner of the chariot will do is get one of the best drivers. That's why Arjuna won. Arjuna had one of the best persons as it best possible person. God Himself drove the chariot. It is very significant. It's not just a story, this Mahabharata. Why Krishna chose to be a charioteer? Because if he is there in our buddhi, if he is the charioteer of our life, then our vehicle, the chariot moves very smoothly. Because that is why Shankaracharya in Vivek Chodamani says, Buddhi with all the other things, the lower things, manas, pranamaya kosha, and the body, are in complete control of the self. So the buddhi with all its modification, what are the modifications of the buddhi? One is the ego, deliberation. Ego is the ahankara, deliberation, determination, and recollection. Recollection means smriti. The thing is, without smriti, that is why uh, to make a thought, why repetition was insisted. In all our education, basic education, people were not allowed to use books. Everything was through rote memory. Now the total emphasis has changed because you have things, we have calculators, you have everything. So memory is not given so much importance. But without memory, without smriti, there is no education at all. So buddhi has been divided into four aspects. Its modifications. Buddhi has four aspects. One is its egoism, the agentship, deliberation to make the right choice, to deliberate what is good, what is wrong, what is beneficial, what is not beneficial. Then finally you determine it, take a decision and then implement it, and then recollection. Recollection means you have to, thinking is not enough. Repetitive thinking leads to smriti. That is why Buddhi, he says, Gita gives so much importance, Bhagavad Gita. Smriti leads to buddhi, and if the buddhi is lost, everything is lost. The whole personality is gone. So, among all the other four aspects of buddhi, smriti is also very important. First, you have to deliberate, but then you have to remember what decision you had taken. It is like that is why the whole science of mantra, the whole science of sadhana, the science of Christian prayer, where they say prayer of the heart, repetitive prayer. The only idea behind repetition is the smriti becomes so strong that even if you want to, you will not forget. Not only your mind, but the prana, the body, everything becomes it is known as there is a beautiful book written by a famous biologist, though he was not a student of Vedanta. He wrote a book, Biology of Belief. I forgot his name. The Biology of Belief. It's a beautiful book. He came to this conclusion through biology, not through studying Vedanta. Though Vedanta says recollection, smriti, constant repetition creates a sort of memory. We think memory is just a mental function, but the body, the cells also have got a memory, which this Bruce Lipton, that is the name of the author, who has come to an independent conclusion that so much of importance is given to the intellect, but he says this is the intellect. Every cell of our body has a memory, has a system which can remember things. So it's not when you tell Jagdish Chandra Bose and Norman Borlaug when he went to the deserts of Mexican deserts when he discovered that drought-resistant wheat. People thought he was a fool. He got got Nobel Prize for that. He got Nobel Prize for peace because there is no Nobel Prize for agriculture. So he and his team, people thought he's just crazy. And so much of money was given by the Rockefeller Foundation and to do research how to develop the best type of wheat which will survive all the climates, including drought. Mainly it was done for Asia, and the Green Revolution saved India. Millions of people were saved because of that wheat. You know what he used to do? People thought he was crazy, but he used to go and talk to the plants, and whole evening used to meditate, sit there, and it was like this repetitive suggestion, auto suggestion, which we do. Auto suggestion is for our own development, but there is a thing known as mass auto suggestion. That is how prayer works. So he used to go and just plead with the plants that why don't you just grow with the minimum water. He wanted those plants to survive so that the next generation of seeds will develop more and more drought resistant capacity. With less water, with extreme conditions, heat, the wheat should survive. So literally, when he saw with this group of scientists used to just go there and all of them put their thoughts together, they thought, how can a plant listen to what? So this Bruce Lipton in his wonderful book, Biology of Belief, how belief not only changes, this is so graphically described in Vivek Chudamani from 184 to 188. He says how buddhi, the thought-making capacity, the ego, the deliberation, the determination, and recollection, which is very important, combined with the organs of perception and having characteristics of the agent, the ideas of being a knower and doer, forms the Vijnanamaya Kosha, which is the cause of man's progress and transmigration. So whole future, according to Vivek Chudamani, the secret lies in this development of the buddhi. Not just one aspect of the buddhi, four aspects. I repeat, one is ego. First of all, you should have an ego that I should do something good. The agentship is always there. One has to be an agent. Otherwise, who will tell it? This is Sri Ramakrishna in the gospel says it is a pakami, that is a ripe ego. So the ripe ego tells you the right thing to do, and not only tells you, but it gives you the agentship. This is right deliberation, through thinking the pros and cons of the career choices or the daily choices that we have to make. It gives you the that ego is attached to the right decision. Unfortunately, our ego is often used in a negative sense. Ego is sometimes translated as a bad quality. Ego is not bad. Sri Ramakrishna said, a paka ami means a ripe ego is good. Raw ego is bad. Raw ego means holding on to things you know is harming you, but you don't give it up. So that deliberation is wrong. That discrimination, what is to be done, we hold on to the wrong choice and still hold on because your ego says no, you have to hold on. It's your decision you have taken. So you have to hold on to that. That is stubbornness. That is the wrong ego or the Vidya ego and avidya ego. Yeah. So this four aspects of buddhi have to be understood, and they in turn they combine with the organs of perception, and they have the characteristic of agent, that what I know. And the Vijnanamaya Kosha, in fact, is central in our transmigration. Where we will be born, transmigration means decide where we will be born, what kind of body, what kind of circumstances. So since this subtle body leaves the physical body, and that subtle body will decide the type of physical body or the physical circumstances you will get when you are reborn. So this transmigration is of the subtle body. So that is what Shankaracharya says here. He says the intelligent sheath is attended with the power of reflection of consciousness. It is also a modification of Prakriti. We are all part of Prakriti. It is possessed of power of knowledge first, then power of action, and continually interacts with the body, organs, and the rest. So, Jiva, it starts with the ego. First, I have to decide what I have to do. And it functions in countless ways, negative as well as positive. But owing to the impressions of the previous incarnations, now that is where samskaras come. The causal body, we will start it in the next class. Who decides? Who motivates the person to take the right decision or the wrong decision? It is ourselves, our karana sharira, which is a record of our past impressions. So that is above this, but we are right now, we can understand or we can uh, take the help of our Vijnanamaya Kosha. That is the least we can do to start our spiritual life, to have Buddhi total, give Buddhi the total control of the vehicle. That is what Kathopanishad Yama tells Nachiketa. You allow the driver to drive. Sometimes many people say, those who are focusing on the driving, if somebody sits near and just disturbs you, the driver can't drive. You have to have faith in that person. Means you have to have faith, give Buddhi the power of agentship. So this agentship with the ripe ego, the ego which takes the right decision, that is a good ego, because without that ego you can't go forward. There is no willpower without ego. So ego is not bad as it is always told. Ahankar, the moment we start talking religion, oh, this person is full of ego. Yeah, but what kind of ego he has? If he has a positive ego, otherwise Buddha also had a ego. All of them had a ego. Not in the way we understand it. The ego that tells them to be good, in spite of all the people telling to the contrary. To hold on to that requires a tremendous ego. To lead a good life requires a tremendous ego. And then to make not only understand, after the mind tells you this is good, you have two other faculties to convince. You have to convince your mind, the willpower, and tell, no, this is what you should do. This is what you should not do. And see that it implements. The mind implements that. The lower mind implements it. It gives the proper instruction. So it's not enough if the driver is good, the horses should be good. The reins that is holding to control the horses, which is the mind, also should be good. And also, of course, uh, the path and I mean the chariot should be good. The Annamaya Kosha. Chariot is like the Annamaya Kosha. So that is why they say a strong body is a great help. So physically, if you are strong, Swami Vivekananda used to emphasize so much. He was telling you can reach, you can understand the Gita better through football. People used to think, what is the connection between Gita and football? His idea was that if the chariot is not strong, if the body is not strong, then the mind, the prana will not be strong. The prana is not strong, it will not implement. That is why Jesus also said in the Bible, the spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. What he meant was the Annamaya Kosha is not under the control. The mind is very well informed, very intelligent, but unfortunately, when the willpower, which is the function of the prana and the body, it's not able to implement it. So the spirit is strong, but the flesh is weak. Flesh is always dependent on so many factors. So it's a complete. And that to the root of this, as I told you, you have to remember these four powers, which will conclude now. The function of the higher mind or buddhi, the development of buddhi is the main topic, which deals with the Vijnanamaya Kosha and its development. The four functions are egoism, that agentship, strong positive ego, self-confidence, whatever name you may give it. Self-confidence is nothing but a positive ego. Deliberation, that is taking the right decisions, thinking very carefully the pros and cons, not just following somebody or taking random decisions. Then determination, then tell the will, now this I have finalized, I'll follow this and I'll not change. And then to make it permanent, smriti. recollection. So recollection also is very important. That is why, as I said, in all our sadhana, you may think, oh, can we not do different prayers every day? Today you do Devi, then do Shiva, then do. Why one repeat one mantra? It's so boring. But without repetition, it doesn't get power, or the impression doesn't, it doesn't convert thought into willpower. When without willpower, none of your organs will agree, neither the body nor the prana will support you, nor the indriyas. So the repetition is the strength, the willpower is increased only by repetition. So that is it is known as Smriti Shakti. So the power of repetition, the power of repetitive prayer. In the Christian tradition, they don't have this mantra, but they have this repetitive prayer, the persistent prayer, unending, or they say the prayer of the heart. Why they say prayer of the heart? Because will is not enough. The emotion also is important. Willpower, power of feeling, and power of thinking. When all three come together, it becomes a very potent force. It strengthens the buddhi, and in the process develops the other lower aspects of our personality. So we'll conclude. If there are questions, are there any questions online? Any question? Otherwise, we'll conclude. So the next, uh, after this discussion on the Vijnanamaya Kosha is over, we'll come to a very important aspect, which is aspect of our personality, which is known as Karana Sharira. Why we do the things that we do. Why some people do good things, some people are always motivated, they keep they're high in spirit. So what determines these things? What drags us down, and what uh, uh, gives us the energy to do the things that we like? So this Vijnanamaya Kosha is under the control of another higher kosha, which is known as Anandamaya Kosha, which is where we discuss that causal body, the Karana Sharira. Karana means the cause. Karana is the cause. Karana Sharira means the causal body. The cause of what we are doing now, the present circumstances, you can't blame anyone. If you see, the Karana Sharira has the imprint of so many lives, so many uh, efforts that we have made to develop this Buddhi, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, and so it doesn't die. The body may die, but these koshas, that is the beauty of transmigration, this theory of time, transmigration. When Krishna is asked by Arjuna, suppose I die when I'm doing sadhana, what will happen? Everything, because people are so gross minded, they just compare. It's something like I have created one, two, $10 million I have accumulated. And suddenly, when you are about to die, that fear comes. What will happen to those things? Where will it go? So, similarly, Arjuna had that doubt. I'll do so much of sadhana throughout my life, as you say, and one fine day I'll die, then all my sadhana will it go waste? That's a very serious question which Arjuna asked. Because he thought like money, like the property, everything we have to leave behind. But Krishna immediately corrects him. He said, don't worry, nothing will be lost. Because these are not gross. Body will be lost. But the other koshas, the other samskaras that you have developed, they will remain in seed form, which will you will inherit in the next birth, and you will be born in a family of yogis, as it says in the Gita. He said, don't worry, you will not lose anything that you have done. All material things will be left behind. Nothing will go with you, because without the body, what is the use? Just as the body is dropped, Annamaya Kosha goes. Along with that, many of the pranas also go away. But a little prana remains with the Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha, that is the causal body, and they wait for transmigration. That has been explained in the uh, few chapters later, which is a very interesting chapter according to Shastras, how transmigration takes place. And all the misery that will be shown, how the theory of karma works. None of the misery that we suffer is undeserved. There is some karana. One has to be very scientific. Without cause, there is no effect. So we have to accept the fact that if this misery is my own doing, then I can undo it. None else can do it. You can't just blame God or blame it. You have to blame yourself. Blame the Karana Sharira, because that will not tell lies. That storage, he says, there is a very nice uh, uh, idea in the Hindu scriptures. That is why they gave so much of importance. So none of the smriti, the memory, is trying to create an impression which is indelibly stored in the Karana Sharira. And whatever happens to the gross body, when the right time comes, it will assume a body, and all those hidden smritis, that is, hidden thoughts of the Vijnanamay Kosha and the Anandamay Kosha, the Karana Sharira will choose a body. It will evolve into a higher spiritual, it will take up a higher body which will suit its sadhana and then continue. This is the theory of transmigration, where nothing is left to chance. It is all cause and effect. If you have done something good, no power in the universe can stop you from getting the benefit. But if you have done bad, the other way around is also true. So that is why they say live cautiously, because we may think we have I mean, in a gross way, we have committed so many things and will somehow escape because nobody has seen it or nobody has detected it. So we think we have got away with, we can get away with so many things. But then the karma, the story, the causal body records everything, and that, because of repeatedly doing good actions or bad actions, we get the fruits ultimately. May not be immediately, because it takes time to fructify. So what if something good has happened, we have to be grateful to ourselves that we have done persistently, we have done something good in the past lives. Even if we have not done anything good in this life, we may get the reward, but at the same time, that should not uh, that doesn't mean that we should not continue to do good. But definitely, if we get away by doing bad things or evil things, uh, definitely it has been stored somewhere and it will rebound upon us. That is why if we read the Karma Yoga, it's such a nice book on the 8 talks that he gave. Some of them he gave in New York, and some of the talks I think he gave in London. Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga, where he discusses not the way it has been discussed in this Panchakosha, but he doesn't say where it is stored, but he says there cannot be an effect without any cause. So that will make us, he says, that will make you act prudently, wisely, so that you don't reap the bad effects of your own thought, of your own actions. So as you sow, so you reap. That is what the Bible says, that is what Buddha says, that is what Vedanta also says. So how this fivefold sheath, where it is stored, this gives the technical explanation or the scientific explanation of where the good and bad deeds are stored in our personality. That we will discuss in the next class, which will be in Bharati Vidya Bhavan, because we have already announced on the website that the next Saturday class, not next, the Saturday next to, the next Saturday is Durga Puja, that will be held in Bharati Vidya Bhavan. We'll continue from where we left. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram